Al,
Yes, that's me.
I want to take you back to 2017.
Oh, please don't take me back to 2017. That was a
Well,
very bad year for me.
too bad we're going back.
It's a really bad year for me.
We got to do some time traveling
Oh, God.
because we've kind of. I know you wanted to talk about this game and all, but we've already kind of done an episode on it.
You've done an episode on it.
Yeah, so I mean, what else are we going to talk about? I've already talked about everything there is to talk about with this game, so
Have you?
I mean, I feel like I did.
Too bad. Now you get my perspective, too.
4 years ago, January 7th, 2017, episode number 4, Steins Gate Zero is what I talked about then. It was before we were doing episodes on the reg. But
Oh, I
actually,
know why I wasn't there.
why were you not there?
Because January 1st, 2017 was when Dad had a stroke.
Ah, that makes sense. But
Yeah,
also, again, we were not doing episodes regularly at that point yet.
right. We were about to get there,
Mm-hmm.
but we weren't there yet.
10 days later, we basically kicked off doing things weekly.
Yep.
We talked about that initial Switch launch presentation, and then we just snowballed from there.
Never quit.
Well, actually, you didn't join up for a little bit, so it was like a little bit after I think you did fully. I think we did a couple episodes, and I still did another one afterwards. Maybe, yeah, I did another solo one in like February, and then after that is when we started just full time.
Cool.
We went ham. But yeah, hello, welcome to this week's episode of the Season 11 Checkup OVA, the podcast where we have conversations about video games, anime, and manga. Hello, I'm Jared, joined as always by Doc Allen, Lady M.
Hello.
And 177 episodes later, this is episode 181, we're going to talk about Steins Gate Zero again.
Once again. I played it.
You finally played it.
I did.
Because recently we talked about Steins Gate, the original game, and you got around to purchasing Steins Gate Zero.
It was on sale.
It was on sale, so of course. And you were also like, I don't want to wait. I don't want to play Elite.
No, I did not want to play Elite.
So why wait for that when I could just play this?
Yeah.
You finally played this. I played this. If you have heard the other episode or not, I played this back when it originally came out in 2016 on the PlayStation Vita.
Yay.
Hashtag Vita never die.
Never die.
So that's how long it's been for me. And I have not really played it since. I watched a little bit of the anime, but I never finished that. So you are going to be much more familiar with what happened. I remember like basics kind of the story. Like I remember some plot points and everything. But yeah, you're going to be a little bit more familiar with the overall kind of stuff that happens throughout the story than what I would be at the moment.
Yeah.
Let me ask you something before we dive into the game itself.
Mm-hmm.
One of the key things that I took away from this game
Mm-hmm.
was I wasn't really sure it needed to be made.
I could agree with that.
Because like I don't know how much of it really adds to the full story, knowing like how we get from basically the bad end of Steins Gate original where he does not save Makase and everything, and then we see the formation of the video he gets at the true ending.
Mm-hmm.
Like I don't know how much of that really like adds or even necessarily detracts from just the overall story. Like it's not. I don't know how much of it's really needed per se.
Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of in agreement with you on this. Like I enjoyed a lot of this, and I enjoyed like getting to be with these characters again.
Mm-hmm.
But did it actually do a whole lot? And the answer on that is no.
It's the one thing where it's like it's very weird because this isn't necessarily a sequel.
Mm-hmm.
It's a sequel to a bad end,
Right.
which I guess in some way does take place canonically, but again, it's not a sequel to like the true ending of Steins Gate or anything like that. So like it's just like here's a what if scenario of what would have happened if this happened instead.
Well, I mean, it did happen, and so
Yeah, true.
and it reminds me a bit in the sense of which I would not argue that this game shouldn't have been made, but Shadow Hearts Covenant did the same thing, that it
Mm-hmm.
canonically takes place after the bad end.
But I feel like that feels more in line of like an actual sequel than
Yeah, I agree.
what this does.
I agree. And
Uh,
I mean, some of it's kind of like retcon and all that.
uh-huh. So yeah, I wanted to kind of get your thoughts on that because that was basically my takeaway from this. Was that like when I finished playing it, I was just like, I mean, this was fine and all, but like, was it truly needed?
Yeah. No, I mean that's my general gist on it as well, is that like again, I enjoyed a lot of the interactions, like getting to be with these characters again and seeing some character development.
Mm-hmm.
But by the end of it, especially like after I got the actual truant, and I'm like,
It just
okay.
ends.
Yeah, it just ends. And I'm like,
Hmm.
all right, like what did this actually do?
Yeah. I think there are good moments in this game that like,
Yes.
or even like in the anime adaptation as well, that you were able to see like specific moments that like Okabe goes through, and specifically like how he's been dealing with everything and how much that's like changed him, and like how much like mental health problems he's been going through just from the events of that summer, and like what he's basically had to go through and deal with, and how that's like altered his relationships with his friends and everything, and how he's basically just like completely done like an overhaul on his entire personality and person.
Mm-hmm.
Like all of that I think is very fascinating, and there are
Yes,
very specific moments that this in like the game and the anime that they do exceptionally well.
I agree.
um but yeah, it's kind of as an overall package I think it's kind of weird.
Yeah, and there are two characters in it that I'm like, ultimately, why do you guys exist? Like one of them, well, there are a few characters something like that, but one of them I enjoyed her presence, but she's really have to exist.
Mm-hmm.
And then the other one, I'm just like, why are you here? Honestly, like, who are you? Why are you here? um, and there were some that I was like, all right, cool, like that's who you're supposed to be. I get it.
Yeah.
But you're right. Like the strength in this game really is like how he is dealing with the aftermath of time travel failing, etc.
Mm-hmm. Like this is very much the fall and rise of Okabe,
Yeah.
and
Um
the fall is very much a fall.
yeah, and I mean it's interesting as I guess for transparency's sake, as someone who like has post-traumatic stress disorder and as somebody who deals with like anxiety and depression issues, like a lot of what they do with him here, I'm like, all right, yeah, that feels real spot on. It's sometimes like uncomfortably to the point
Mm-hmm.
of being spot on, of like, oh, I feel what he's feeling right now and I don't like it.
I mean, when I wrote, there was a specific piece I wrote about the anime,
Mm-hmm. Which I read, by
a
the way.
very like a specific episode in particular. Like I basically asked you a bunch of like questions about mental health, and like, would this be the right terminology to use? Is this the right kind of like um issues that like he would be going through and all that sort of stuff? Like you were basically like my key go-to person to like ask like all those kinds of questions and get like that kind of information to really kind of like bolster that piece and make it, you know, how it basically became.
It's a really good piece. I went back and read it like now that I actually have context, and I was like, all right, this actually is really, really good. Like I liked it already when I edited it, but I didn't have any context whatsoever on what was going on.
Which is surprising
So,
because that's like the second piece I wrote for Crunchy. So like I
yeah,
probably would look
it
back
was
at it and be
early.
like, "Oh God, this is terrible."
No, I really liked it. And like one of the things that is a very minor detail, but I relate very much and I can understand the reliance on it, is that it's mentioned in the dialogue a few times, and in the anime it's shown a few times. He has a pillbox that he keeps with him
Mm-hmm.
that has like his panic attack medicine essentially. And I keep a little twisty capsule thing on my keys that has mine. And like if I don't have my keys with me, I'll take a different container, put some in there because I have to have it with me, or else I will like have different types of anxiety of not having that.
Right.
But his, like, he always has it with him. It's really interesting. But also the fact that he actually can't tell anybody why he's so messed up right now. Like, he can't say that he was time traveling, and he can't say that he accidentally killed the girl that he was in love with and all that. He can't say that because they're gonna think that he's a crazy person and like commit him.
I think they handle like the mental health aspects of this game in a way that like, and it's almost surprising
Mm-hmm.
because like they handle it with such like a deftness and a level of care that is very hard to do, I think. And you could have easily made this into like more like of a bad comedy or something like that, where like it's the
Right.
butt of the joke or something similar to that. But instead, like they're like, no, we are going to take this very seriously and show you like just the ways that this can completely change and harm a person.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, even the fact that like for the first like at least third of the game, he refuses to go back to the lab.
Mm-hmm.
Like he associates that location, well, and the radio building too, like
Yeah.
just to go to those because he associates them with like negative feelings, and he will freak out if he goes to them.
Mm-hmm.
And so even though like his friends are at the lab and are very supportive of him and really want him to be okay, he cannot go there until he's actually like kind of forced to be there.
Yeah.
It's really intense, and I think that it's probably the most well done thing about this game, and again the anime that goes along with it, is how they treat him and how they make sure that you know that like this had a significant impact on him and it's going to affect his decision making.
And it's a very serious situation. It's not like, oh, this is just a new character or a new persona he's come up with. Like, no,
No.
this is incredibly serious. This isn't a joke. Like, this is very real.
No, I mean it really feels like he kind of broke a bit, and you know, one of the things that he says is like, I'm trying to be normal. I'm trying to go to school. I'm trying to make friends. I go out to drink with my friends. I go on these group dates. I'm trying to be normal. And he says several times, like, I'm trying to be normal.
Yeah.
And so he's like clinging to that idea of normalcy to try and like make him feel better, make him feel like an actual person again. Even though it's not anything that he's really actually interested in. Like he's interested in the classes, but he's not really interested in the group dates or the drinking or anything. He doesn't really care, but he's trying to feel something positive. And that's amazing.
Yeah, like it's a very wild just character arc when you consider like what he did, what he is in the original game to how he gets to this point. Like it's so wild.
It really is. And I mean, I really have to give them credit on how he's written, because it's not an easy thing to portray, and they did it quite well.
Yeah.
Makes you wonder, like, if somebody on the writing team actually has some kind of experience, like obviously not the kind of experience that he has, but with like the actual...
you would have to.
I would think so.
You'd have to, or you'd have to like know someone who's going through that kind of stuff,
like you did,
and make
with
them
me,
be like an advisor or something like that. Yeah, it's like you would not be able to write the way that they write his character if you did not have experience with that kind of thing. I do not think like you can't just come with that on a whim.
And like one of the most striking moments to me comes pretty early. Like one of the first scenes that he's in is he goes to like a therapy session. They're trying to do like a hypnosis type treatment on him.
Yeah.
And they're talking to him and he says like the color is red, and they're saying like, well, who is this person? Is it someone you love? Like he kind of freaks out and they break him out of it. But then like as soon as he goes downstairs, he sees Mayuri and he's like, oh hey, everything's fine, that went great, thanks for recommending it for me, like I'm really glad that you did that. And so he's like really putting on this like,
facade.
Yeah, this facade, because he doesn't want it to affect her the way that it's affecting him. Like he doesn't want to hurt her because of how he feels. And so that is a very different version of this character than what we got before. That, like, he's, for one, cognizant of how people are going to react to him, but also cognizant to, like, I am really messed up right now, and if I let anybody know that, like, it's going to really affect my relationships even further.
Hmm.
Um, and that is significant given the fact that, like, he's in this timeline because he wanted to save her in the first place.
Right.
Um, so he's trying to, like, have this positive outlook on, like, what she's trying to help him with, and even though he's clearly not, it's not working for him.
Hmm.
Um, just way different. Like, he would not have done that in the last game. There's
No.
no way. Even, like, after he breaks out a little bit of the Kioma persona in the first one, like, I still don't think he would have done something like that.
No, I completely agree with you.
So, I mean, it kind of forces him to grow up, but it also forces him to really be in a bad situation. I mean,
Yeah.
he can't tell anybody. He can't even tell, like, not all of his friends know what's going on. Nobody knows the full picture except for, like, Suza.
Yeah,
She's
Suzu's
really the
basically the
only
only person
one.
he can talk to this about, and the bad thing about that is like she is also
She's
just like
mad at him.
she's mad at him and also hounding him like we have to go back and try again.
Yeah.
We are running out of time. If we do not do this, I will be stuck here for good. Like we need to go back and fix things.
Yeah. So, like, the one person that he could potentially rely on for, like, understanding won't be that person for him because she has one mission and one mission alone.
Mm-hmm. And like
And
I don't think she's the character or the type of person who could basically help him through this.
no, she wouldn't be.
Yeah.
I mean, she grew up in, like, a
In World War
hellscape.
Three.
Yeah, so, like, she's not equipped to deal with that kind of thing. She's
No.
equipped to deal with, like, I need to take action and I need to take it now or else I'm going to die.
Yeah.
And it's like that's how her brain works. It doesn't have the, like, sympathetic.
She is not as empathetic as a person would be, considering her background is I was born and raised in a war-torn country, and I can't really fathom peaceful times and all that sort of stuff.
Right. So, I mean, it's real intense on several levels here of, like, what you have to deal with in this game with these characters.
And like I will say, like, even though like I think like we talked about at the top, like you could kind of take this story or leave it in like as a general sense, it is very much not the kind of sequel story you would basically ever expect, I think, coming off of Steins Gate.
No.
Which I think that in that particular case, like that is a true testament to like what they were able to do with this game.
Mm-hmm. And we'll talk about her a little bit more, but I think that it's also interesting that they introduced Maho, because she's also grieving in very different ways.
Yeah.
So to have these two in the same scenarios, basically, and to see how they react and how they're, like, talking with each other, it's real interesting.
Yeah.
I still don't know that she was completely necessary in terms of, like, overarching story, but, you know.
I mean, I think it helps, like, it helps Okabe in the sense that, like, he's able to talk to someone.
Ish.
Yeah, ish. Like, obviously, I think later on he's able to kind of more open up and be like, here's what really happened.
Yeah.
But, like,
again, ish.
Just having, like, just someone who, like, knew her.
Yeah.
And be able to kind of just, like, talk about, like, oh, you know, this is how my interactions with her were, and just have those kind of conversations is, like, it's not necessarily going to completely just be like, oh, he's fixed, but, like, it's a good, just, like, first baby step that a person like that would basically kind of need, I think.
It's essentially confirmation that she existed.
Yeah.
Because in everybody else's mind, like they didn't really know her in
Hmm.
this timeline. They didn't know that like who she was, what she did, and so like for him to have Maho who knew her and can confirm, like, oh yeah, she does that kind of thing. Like
Hmm.
to him, that's a solidification of like, okay, she was real. Um, which I guess brings up like the major one of the major points of this is that there is this Amadeus AI system
Hmm.
um, that Maho and her American professor have built. One of them having Maho's personality and memories, and the other one has Kurisu's appearance and memories. And they eventually sign him on as like a tester to talk to her,
Hmm.
which whew, when they pulled that up and told him to do that, I'm like, oh god, please don't do this to this guy. Please don't do this. This is a terrible idea.
Yeah.
Um, like he's very clearly grieving and having issues with her being dead. With them not knowing that he is partially responsible for that.
Right.
Um, I still can't say like he's the one who did it because like it wasn't really his fault,
But he
but
feels responsible.
he blames himself. And now there's this AI version of her that like talks with him and like wants to chat all the time and calls him, and they just sit there and talk, and he's like, this is bad. Like I keep thinking that she is this, like she's alive, that's her, it's an AI. And I'm like, oh my god, they are going to ruin this boy. And they don't even know it. Ah. um so two of the like running things throughout most of the routes are one, Amadeus, and two, Krisu's hard drive and her laptop.
Hmm.
Like those are two of the big things that are relevant in almost every single one of these plot lines. Because yes, there are multiple routes, much like the first one.
There's like two general
two
routes.
two major routes and then some
Yeah.
branches off of those.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, before we dive into the story fully,
Mm-hmm.
let's talk a little bit about development and related media.
Let's do it.
The development section of this Wikipedia page is really not much. It's like, hey, this team got together and wrote it. The only thing that's really has anything is like about the music composition, which was done by Takeshi Abo. He says his process for composing the music consisted of him reading the game's story to get as full as possible understanding of the setting and character personalities. He considered his first impressions of the game's emotional flow and events to be very important. He would write them down together with the kind of music he would want to use for each scene and keep them in mind when composing the music. He saw that this approach, while taking longer than if he had just designated songs to various places in the game, made for higher quality music with a better relation to the game's worldview.
I can see that.
And then also, as part of the Steins Gate Worldline 2017-2018 project, several pieces of media based on Steins Gate Zero were produced, including a prequel manga by Takahimeno, which is serialized by Katakawa Shoten. An anime adaptation of the game was premiered on April 11th, 2018.
Mm-hmm.
A novelization of the game by Tatsuya Hamazaki, Steins Gate Zero Solitude of the Mournful Flow, came out on August 1st, 2018. A conversation partner application based on Amadeus Kirisu was revealed to be in development in September 2019. That's a thing.
Wow.
And then Steins Gate Zero Elite, an updated version of the game, which, like Steins Gate Elite did with Steins Gate, adds full animation, was announced at the annual Science Adventure Live event in January 2020. So that's coming out at some point. And basically it's going to be the same thing as Elite, where it's going to be like, here's a bunch of the anime in place of the original art and stuff.
No, the original art is great. That's one thing that I am very happy about with this was I very much appreciate the art style in this more than I like the art style in Elite. Like
Yeah.
the anime art is not terrible.
It's just the thing I think where you can't really replicate the art style of the game in a traditional weekly animation.
No.
So they have to make some compromises here and there. All right,
Um.
let's talk about this here story.
Okay.
I'm gonna read from the plot summary from Wikipedia. You're gonna fill in the gaps here and there about more specific stuff, like
As best as I can.
as best as you can. Just because, like I said, I have not played this game in 4 years, so it's been a hot second. Like we've talked about, the game begins during the Steins Gate ending, where Suzuha traveled to August 21st, 2010, using her time machine to get Okabe to prevent a time travel arms race leading to World War III. To do this, he needs to stop Kirisu's father, Dr. Nakabachi, from killing Kirisu and bring her time travel theories to Russia. Suzuha brings Okabe to the moment of the murder, July 28th, 2010, but he accidentally kills Kirisu himself due to the world line convergence. Upon return to the present, Okabe refuses Suzuha's request to try again and develops post-traumatic stress disorder.
Amongst other things.
Yes. Nearly 5 months later, Okabe attends Kirisu's co-workers Maho and Leskinen's presentation of their Amadeus system, which uses digitized memories as artificial intelligence avatars. One avatar has been made based on Kirisu. Speaking with them, Okabe becomes a tester for Amadeus, allowing him to communicate with Amadeus Kirisu through his phone. While trying to change Okabe's mind, Suzuha looks for Kagari, who got separated from her when traveling to 1998. Maho, who has Kirisu's hard drive, wants to access her theories, hoping to be able to save Kirisu. Russia and other countries and groups, including CERN, are also after the theories, and the world line shifts as they monitor activities surrounding Kirisu's theories and memories.
Yeah. So one thing that I just want to mention real quick is that during the whole presentation of the Amadeus system, they have the professor speaking English and then having Maho like translate.
Correct.
And that was actually a pretty clever thing that they actually had. Like, it wasn't perfect English because it was obviously like a Japanese person speaking English. But it was a nice touch that they actually vocalized him speaking all the English lines and then her having to translate it.
Right.
And another thing that I actually liked about it is that they weren't one for one.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's one thing that when you're like in the moment translating, it's not always going to be like the exact wording.
No.
So like he would say something in English and she just like, okay, this is what he said. And like, that was really a nice touch that they actually took the time to like record those lines, but also make it so that they're not exact. So it felt more like realistic.
Right.
Also, Okabe stood up and objectioned in the middle of it. And I was like, oh my God, it's Phoenix Wright.
Have you watched the dub of the anime?
I have seen parts of the dub now, but I haven't watched the whole thing, no.
Like, have you seen this particular scene in the dub?
I may have.
Because I was curious how they would have done it there. Because I think in the Japanese version, obviously, I think they kind of just do the same thing as the game, where he speaks English and Maho translates.
Mm-hmm.
So I wonder how they would have done it in the English dub.
That's a good question.
Like, just have him speak a different language.
I mean, what would he speak though? Like,
that's a good question.
He's from an American university,
right?
Although his name, to me, sounds Russian.
Mm-hmm.
Like, there's parts of his name. I think his name's like Alexei.
Yeah.
Like, that's a pretty, or Alexis. Sorry. I don't know. What is Leskinen? What is that? What is that origin?
I don't know.
Let's do
look it
some
up.
real live Googling.
Well, it's just going to tell us about the character from Steins Gate. There's a Finnish hockey player with the same last name.
So Finnish. Huh.
So probably some Eastern European kind of name.
That's what I'm thinking. Okay. So Eastern European is...
It's about what you'd think.
Yeah. Also, I love that it continues to mention how huge he is. Which they actually demonstrate with the art, like his art. I'm trying to think of what the word is I'm looking for. But like, he's always much bigger on the screen than everybody else. Even like when he's like close up to you, he's much bigger.
Mm-hmm.
So that was well done. I was like, all right, cool. Like you're trying to actually demonstrate to me that he is a large man. But also he's just like referred to as a football player and stuff multiple times.
And then Maho's a gremlin.
And I'm like, there is no professor that I know that could be compared to a football player. Maho is a gremlin, and I appreciate that about her. I, relate to gremlin characters quite a bit. And this is also probably the only game that I will ever get that references Amadeus, the film, which is great. Was not expecting that. But yeah, Maho is a very interesting character in the sense that, like, one, she's hilariously tiny. And always has to, like, tell people that she's an adult. I'm like, girl, I get that. I get that so hard. There's, like, a part that I sent you a picture because, like, her and Okabe are, like, at a cafe and her feet are dangling from the chair. I was like, I know that feel. Sucks. Always having to tell people that you are an adult woman and also, like, dealing with things that are stupid, like you can't reach the floor. They're not as easy as you would think. But yeah, she's introduced as, like, this is another, like, girl genius type character. She's a bit older than everybody else. I think she's like 21. She's born in 89.
She's like college aged.
Yeah.
Or like later college age, I should say.
Which one thing that was unclear to me is whether or not she actually has a doctorate, because some people referred to her as doctor and some people didn't. So it's kind of unclear. Anyway, so she realizes pretty early on, like, oh, he knew her. And so that's part of why he gets chosen to be a tester.
Yeah.
So yeah, where do we want to go here?
Well, let me continue reading.
Okay.
The story splits into two major branches, and the one leading to the ending promised Renascimento. Sure. Okabe rebuilds the phone wave to help an amnesiac woman identified as Kagari, who has had Kirisu's memories implanted by someone, which gradually overwrites her personality. This inadvertently transports him to 2036 during World War III. Although Okabe has been predetermined to die sometime in 2025, Daru circumvented it by implanting 2011 memory data as Okabe's body was still alive. Inspired by this and determined to avert this future, Okabe returns to 2010, destroys the hard drive, erases Amadeus, and sends a D-line message to the past of this branch, telling himself to deceive the world and tide the possibilities. The resulting world line is not shown.
Yeah. So this is essentially what leads to him finding out, like, how to start putting this plan into place. This was kind of an odd I'll just say it's a retcon. That they're like, oh yeah, you definitely died in 2025. They're like, actually, he was just tortured until his body kind of, like, broke, or his mind broke, but his body was alive. And then, like, Mayuri and Lukako and Ferris, like, went and took care of his body for all those years. And then we just, like, put all your memories into this little brain you got here. And he, like, wanders out naked and sees all the dead bodies and dogs, like, eating eyeballs. And then there's a firefight, and at some point Lukako dies, and I was real upset about it. It was bizarre, but I think part of the reason that this was important is that this is, like, the first time that he actually sees, like, oh, this whole World War III thing is real.
Yeah.
Because, like, he's been hearing about it. Souza has definitely been, like, drilling it in his brain, like, this is gonna happen. But, like, it's not real until he gets there and is like, oh god, there are piles of bodies everywhere, and this is terrifying. And then, like, he once again gets to hold one of his friends as they lay dying. Yay. but this essentially gives him like that push of like, all right, here's one step for figuring out how do we fix this.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and the cool thing about this, like to see the world and tie the possibilities, D-line message is that I finished this side of the story first and then went to the other side.
Right.
And when I went to the second side, I was in the middle of like regular conversation with some characters, and then like I got a message on my phone. I pick it up and it's that message. I'm like, wait, what?
That's pretty
Right
cool.
now? So that like that was a really cool touch that like as you're like just doing normal things, you get this message and he's just like, okay. And like I had seen what happens. So it was like, oh, I know what's happening here, but like it just kind of comes in a weird spot in the game that you're like, huh,
Mm-hmm.
this is where he's going to start planting those seeds. Okay, interesting. Because it's very early on in the other one,
Right.
like really early. Basically, like there's the scene that starts the split. The very next scene in that split is where you get the text message. So like you still have multiple sections of that game, like that branch left before you even could begin to do anything ending wise. And
Right.
like you're in the middle of a conversation with like Mary's cosplayer friends when you get it. It's wild. And it says the resulting world line is not shown. What does that mean, really?
Basically, what happens with that ending?
Oh, okay. Like you don't see what happens after that.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, it really doesn't matter ultimately what happens after that.
Right.
Like the important thing is the message.
Mm-hmm.
But also, yeah, Kaguri is introduced in this
Mm-hmm.
this branch.
Who we'll learn more about as we continue forward.
Mm-hmm.
The first major branch has two side branches. In Recursive Mother Goose, Okabe and Mayuri trace the origin of Kaguri's Only Memory, a song they learned Okabe originally sung as a child after Mayuri's grandmother's death. After
This
nearly
entire section.
After nearly being hit by a truck, Kaguri regains memories, including having escaped a facility she was held in in 2005. Mayuri intends to time travel with Suzuha to reach Steins Gate, but Kaguri takes Mayuri's place as she fears not meeting her in Steins Gate. In Twin Automata, Maho hides in Ferris's apartment after a kidnapping attempt and befriends Moeka. Noticing that someone is trying to steal Amadeus, Leskinen and Maho go to lock down the data, but they are ambushed by Reyes, who shoots Leskinen and tries to make Maho give her the Amadeus access codes. Maho decides to erase Amadeus rather than give it up, and she is saved when Moeka shoots Reyes. When Amadeus Kirisu is being deleted, a Kirisu apparently from another world line takes her perspective. She calls for help and tells Maho that Steins Gate is real and tells Maho her laptop password is related to Mozart's Sonata Number 10. A piece by Mozart, yes. That had been the theme for this ending branch. Returning home, Maho figures out Kirisu's password from the Ascent and finds her research.
Mm-hmm. This whole like weird thing about the song was so bizarre because like there's a good like at least 30 minutes of this game dedicated to like figuring out this song. And they're like, oh, hey, how do you know the song? Oh, well, like Suzuha was singing it. Okay, well, Suzuha, how'd you learn it? Oh, my mom would sing it. Okay, well, what's her name? Yuki. How'd you learn this? Oh, you know, one of my cousins in my cooking class was singing it. Oh, huh. Do you have the name of that person? Oh, yeah, I email with him. Oh, it's Okabe's mom. And then like you go and talk to her, and she's like, oh yeah, you know, I learned it because you used to sing it. He's like, I used to sing what? What? And so it's so bizarre that it's like, all right, but he doesn't remember it at all.
It's just a little game of telephone.
Basically, yeah. And like, they eventually give like a hint at how he learned it, but even still, like, it's one of those situations, kind of like the pin from the first one of like, when did it actually begin?
Mm-hmm.
Like where was the starting point of this? But yeah, it was a wild situation of like, all right, nobody knows where this song came from. Also, this whole like Maho and Moeka thing was wild. Like them becoming friends was not something I expected at all. Especially because of the first game I didn't really trust Moeka.
Mm-hmm.
But they just became like BFF and like became little weird gremlins together, like little dirty gremlins in Ferris's apartment, and Ferris's butler's like, it's the end of the world. I can't deal with this. And like passes out on the carpet because he can't clean the whole thing. Like, it's wild. And then like the whole thing with Reyes shooting the doctor, I was like, oh no, that's bad. And I had my own little like PTSD flashback with her, which was a whole thing. That I kind of had a freak out that I told you about. And then I was like,
Mm-hmm.
that's not even her name. I just like implanted that was her name because the letters are so similar and the first name is the same. It was wild. But yeah, one thing about this ending that was really interesting is the fact that like when we see like Kirisu's playful side showing up in the Amadeus version of herself, but then we also get the fact that like somehow there is like that world line version of her that converges into this and is like, oh, by the way, here's all this information and I know what's going on. It's like, wait, what? The payoff with the whole like piano sonata password and all was really not all that cool though.
Mm-hmm.
Like, oh cool, like I have your research and then like that's the end of it.
That's
Okay,
it.
great. And then like it never came up again in any of the other ones. Everyone's like, we don't know the password. I'm like, oh, okay.
Have you heard any classical music lately?
Like literally part of this whole thing is like Amadeus and whatever. So that payoff was a little odd, but
Mm-hmm.
there's some real good scenes in this with Maho and Moeka and also Ferris and her butler. Like made it very, very worth it. But yeah, Professor gets blapped.
Blap blap. Alrighty. Well, let's talk about the second major branch.
Okay.
In the second major branch leading to Vega and Altair, Okabe stops testing Amadeus. If the promised Renacimento ending was completed first, a D-line message will appear early in the branch with this cryptic message to deceive the world and tie the possibilities, as you said, but its origin is unknown. He and Maho are followed by groups who want Kirisu's theories, and Kirisu's hard drive is destroyed in a skirmish. Daro and Maho secretly rebuild the phone wave in an effort to save Kirisu, but is unable to complete the test due to missing components. Okabe tells him that saving Kirisu means sacrificing Mayuri, which Mayuri overhears. She decides to travel back in time with Suzuha to convince Okabe in 2010 to save Kirisu after failing in his prior attempt. However, Leskinen appears, revealing that he works for the intelligence agency's strategic focus and intends to steal the time machine. Mayuri and Suzuha attempt to flee in the time machine, but it is hit by a rocket and destroyed. In the aftermath, Okabe discloses the missing components to Daro and Maho to complete the phone wave, thus allowing him to time leap to an earlier part of the day and works to ensure Mayuri and Suzuha's successful time travel. Surrounded by Leskin and his men, he declares that he will find a way to Steins Gate.
Yeah, so this is the closest one to like our true end, but one thing I guess we should have mentioned is like we talked a bit about it the last one, how like Kaguri is a pretty big character in this. I don't think she was necessary at all.
Yeah.
Like everything with her felt really forced and odd.
Mm-hmm.
And like part of the whole thing was, oh, she looks like Kira's like ish.
She's got red hair.
She has red hair, and that's basically it. But I feel like there could have been a lot more payoff with her and a lot more character building with her, and especially like with her relationship with Mayuri. But it was just really bizarre that she was just kind of like there.
Right.
And then even then, like inconsistently there. I didn't care for her all that much.
Mm-hmm.
Just because there wasn't a lot to her.
Yeah, I can agree with that.
I will say that when Mayuri like finds out what happened in this, like it's heartbreaking.
Mm-hmm.
the way that she reacts when she realizes like, oh my god, like I'm the reason why he's like this, which is not true, but like that's her reaction, and she just like breaks, and that's like the first time we've ever really seen this character have that kind of break.
Mm-hmm.
Because usually she's very, very positive. She's always trying to like cheer everybody up and be like the bright side of the group and everything. And like this is the one moment that we see her just like really be vulnerable.
Mm-hmm.
It's fascinating. Um, and even with that vulnerability, her whole mindset is I have to fix this. I have to make it so that he goes back and he does the right thing. I have to do this. Um, which we also don't usually see this level of like I'm blanking on my words today.
Like determination.
Yeah, determination, or like we don't see this level of like she's going to do this thing and it's the only thing that she's the only one who can do it.
Like it's kind of motivation and sort of thing.
Yeah, yeah. It was really fascinating, and the fact that she's like going to Souza and being like, all right, let's do this, we have to do this, come on, we have to do this. And like proactive is the word that I was looking for.
Aha.
Because she actually goes and it's like, this is what we're doing,
Yeah.
this is my plan. um and the thing that's really fascinating about this whole like plot here is that it's apparently taking place during the specific Japanese holiday, where these two characters are married, but they can only see each other like once a year, and it's on that day.
Mm-hmm.
And she a few times refers to Okabe as that character, like this, he is my this, and I forget the name of him, but um I think she realizes at this point like he loves Kurisu,
Mm-hmm.
but I love him. And she says in a few times in this, she's like, I love Kiyoma, but I love Okabe more.
Mm-hmm.
And she's like, I love him more than I think anybody could, and because of that, like I have to fix this. And so it's like this level of maturity that you don't usually see from her, that she's like, I realize that we're not going to be together, I get that, but I still have to make sure that he's happy.
Right.
And I also find it really fascinating that she's specifically saying that she loves like both sides of him.
Mm-hmm.
Like she loves Kiyoma, she loves Okabe, they're both the same person, but she wants to like make it clear that like both versions of him are the ones that she cares for.
Right.
Which is cool. I mean, like I can imagine he's kind of hard to be around when he's in full Kiyoma mode sometimes.
Yeah.
But that he's the one who rescued her, so this is her chance to rescue him.
Mm-hmm.
It's really cool. But yeah, they do get like rocket launched at one point. And one thing about the rocket launcher that's odd is that like he specifically says when that happens that like the rocket launcher exploded and it blew his clothes off. But then he like runs through back to the lab, and like nobody mentions the fact that he's naked. Also the fact that he just ran through like Tokyo naked. Like I understand there's a lot going on at that point, but like there's this naked man running through, and then like he just shows up and they're like, oh dude, what's going on? And like no one mentions the fact that he's just dong out. Okay. All right. I feel like that's something Daru would have mentioned.
You would think.
But no. Nope. But yeah, so they decide that they're going to fix that. I think this is also the part where there are two different like branches that you can take on here because of the like cycle of whether they succeed or not with the time travel. But Kaguri shows up and is like, I'm going to stop this from happening. And Mayuri gets like grazed by a bullet at one point, and then Kagari goes into like psycho mode and just murders everybody. At one point, like her is shot off and she still keeps murdering people. And like it's terrifying. Even just reading about it, I'm like, oh my God, like that's horrific. She's just like disemboweling people because Mayuri got like grazed by a bullet.
Which to clarify, because the synopsis here doesn't really go into much. There was like this very like there's a character you see constantly that's like all in black and like a black helmet. That's like an assassin.
Yeah. Yes.
That you see constantly. That ends up being Kagari, and also Kagari is Mayuri's daughter.
Yes.
From the future.
And also in in certain parts, she just somehow had plastic surgery and looks like Suza's mom. And that was very unclear to me. Like, it felt very shoehorned and confusing because in certain routes she just looks like Kagari. Yeah. And then in other ones, she's like, I got plastic surgery. And also the real Yuki is in Europe doing study abroad and Daro will meet her next year. And I'm like, what?
Excuse me, what? What do you mean?
What? And she's like, don't let them see my face. Don't let them. I'm like, what? What the is going on? Why is this a thing? I don't understand what's happening. Like, what is the point of this? And it was never made clear to me what the point of that was. Other than just like, ooh, it's a twist.
It's a twist.
It does explain the fact that at one point, Yuki's like, oh yeah, I got an arm injury at work, and he had at one point suspected that she was the one, like Yuki was the one in the motorcycle outfit, and he's like, oh no, never mind, like I'm just paranoid, that's what's happening. But apparently it was. So yeah, that was a whole thing, and I still think that was a stupid twist.
Yeah.
But eventually, yeah, because of the phone wave, he is able to make sure that they get back in time. But they don't have enough battery to actually like get Mayuri to Okabe to like make sure that he goes to save Kirisu, but then also to get back. Mm-hmm. So they end up getting lost in time, which is the thing.
Gotta get back in time.
Oh, I forgot about the whole like Maho becomes a freaking like agent of chaos here. The very bad end.
Is this our next section we're gonna talk about?
The second, yeah.
Yeah. So the second major branch has the side branch Gehenna Stigma, where Maho is caught eavesdropping on Reyes and Liskinen, hearing that Liskinen thinks Okabe hides information. Liskinen uses Maho. She meets Okabe, who tells her about time travel, provided that she does not try to save Kirisu. After he reveals where Suzuha's time machine is, Maho suffocates him. When waking up, he is tortured for information by Liskinen. Wrecked with guilt for betraying Okabe, Maho makes an unsuccessful attempt to save Kirisu in her own way. World War III begins, Daro flees Akihabara to develop the time machine, and Okabe gives up on reaching Steins Gate. So yeah, bad ending.
Yeah, it's literally called the bad ending in certain guides. I'm like, yeah, that one kind of sucks because he literally just like sits on the roof and gives up. Mm-hmm. Which this one, really the big reveals, I guess, are that the two of the doctors were like working together.
Right.
And that they also at some point can use Maho, like they can alter her brain so that she can give information to them. And she's like begging at one point in her head, like, do not give me the information. Do not tell me these things, because if you tell me that he's going to know, but like she can't say that. Mm-hmm. Also the idea of like Maho, who's like 4'9", going up and just like choking Okabe, it's like wild. This little gremlin. So yeah, this one's just overall a bad ending.
Yep, pretty much.
So I guess that leads us to the end, huh?
The end. All right, so the final ending, Milky Way Crossing, only appears after completing the Promised Renacimiento and Vega and Altair endings. It is set in 2025 on a world line similar to, but not the same as, the one from Vega and Altair. Okabe sends a email video to his 2010 counterpart instructing himself how to save Kirisu and cause the world line divergence to Steins Gate, thus setting the events that would play out as the true end route in the previous game. He then leaves in the time machine to find Suzuha and Mayuri and bring them safely back to 2025. So basically, this ending is the game telling you how the video that you receive in the true ending of Steins Gate is made.
Yes. And that's literally what it is. Because I was like, oh, yay, I finished this part. And I probably can't like get the true ending tonight because I'm going to go to sleep. And then I came back and it was like 15 minutes. I'm like, what? But it's literally like Ferris is filming the video. He's explaining what needs to happen. You can see like Lukako and Kaguri. For some reason, she's there as an adult. I don't know what's going on, but she's also got like 7-year-old Suzuha with her.
Mm-hmm.
Daru's over there, and like Daru lost some weight and got like a little bit chiseled jaw. It's like you got the whole crew there, like watching him do this and go like full Kyoma mode, and then you find out like, oh, they've made this like prototype time machine here that can detect essentially like the black hole that's used to time travel, so that they can find the time machine that Suzuha and Mayuri were in.
Mm-hmm.
Which takes them back to the like way past. I forget which like BCE it is, but there's a scene in the first Steins Gate that like shows it where they're in like this weird like hellscape. But turns out it's just like, you know, the past where people shouldn't have been alive. But he's able to save them. It is unclear whether or not he's able to go back with them.
Mm-hmm.
That's not explained, but I was reading boards because, yeah, that's a thing that I do. That was like trying to figure out with this one whether or not this was required in order to have a Suzuha who knew what was going on. Because the Suzuha who knew that he had to fail once and then like to go back, like she would have to know of all the plans, because there are multiple plans in play here. There's the one of like Mayuri going back and slapping him so that he'll actually have the motivation to go back.
Mm-hmm.
Then there's the ultimate plan of like, we have to make sure that he gets the Steins Gate, and like there are all these moving plans here. And so there's a question of like, is there a plan so that there is the correct Suzuha at that event at the time? And the question is this the version that has to be there? Is that why he has to go back and rescue her?
I feel like that would make sense. Like
it does.
She would be the final piece of like, hey, we need you. We're going to fill you in on literally everything that is going on, the entire plan of how we're going to fix everything, and then we're going to ship you off, and you're going to go do that.
Mm-hmm. And so this version that was stuck there would be the version who would know literally everything.
Mm-hmm.
It's not clear, and it's never explained in the game whether that's the case or if he just felt like he had to go rescue them. But I like the idea better that like she's a missing piece of this puzzle.
Yeah.
But that's one thing about this game, is that not everything is really like made clear of why they're doing it.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, like the entirety of like the Kaguri plot is like okay, and like one of the like weird cycle things is that she's apparently the one that taught Okabe the song. You know, it's kind of like chicken or the egg story there, like where did he learn this dang song? But yeah, this is one of those situations, and the game just ends.
Yeah, it just ends.
It just ends.
Also, it does a weird thing, apparently, because you played the PS4 version, correct?
Yes.
And there's a little final scene afterwards that like is just someone talking and kind of just like going through some stuff.
Yep.
And for whatever reason, the version you played did not translate that.
Nope.
While the Vita version
idea.
that I have had that translated. So I don't understand that because both of those games came out together.
Yep.
So I don't know why there would be a difference there. Or
I
why nearly 4 years after the fact that hadn't been patched and redone?
that I don't know because it was like I have no idea what's being said to me right now.
I had to go back
And
and look at my playthrough on YouTube to see if that was the case for the Vita version. I was like, oh no, that's in English. That's not in Japanese like it was for you.
like as soon as I was like, I don't know what she's saying. You're like, well, time to learn Japanese. It was like, like I felt like it was relevant, which I guess it wasn't really all that relevant. It was just talking, but
Yeah.
Still, it was very odd that like that has not been fixed.
Yeah, it's very strange. I will say that like the anime does some interesting things with regards to the final end part where basically
yes,
I sent you this video where like you can literally sync up the episode 23 I believe of Steins Gate and episode 23 of Steins Gate 0, and they basically reuse scenes from the original Steins Gate anime into this to like show Okabe going through everything as like he's about to make the final decision to get him to the true ending. But then like also in the Zero anime you see like the behind the scenes of like the video being filmed and everything. But like yeah, like they literally like they reuse the same shots and everything. They tweak some here and there, but like you could easily just like line them up perfectly and like they play out the exact same length and everything.
It was really cool.
And like the only like difference like is basically at the end when like Okabe basically kind of like gets the motivation and everything. Like it in the original anime goes with that, but then the Zero anime basically kind of cuts back to the future and like shows everyone kind of like after wrapping up that and talking. So like it's a very cool little like thing that they did that like it's
a nice touch.
You definitely did not have to do that.
No.
But like for a series like that, like this, it totally works.
It's a really nice touch.
It's a really good touch. And also just because I don't remember how much of it is in the actual game, like just the episode when Okabe goes into the world line where Kurisu is still alive and he meets her and like has to confront like those feelings again and be like, I'm the one who got you killed and all this, and like has to like talk all of that out with her.
Yeah.
It like that. I like obviously I didn't finish the anime, but like of the episodes that I saw, like that episode is like a masterclass. Like that episode is so good.
I plan to watch the original anime and the Zero anime at some point, like when I have time.
Right.
I did go watch OVA and the movie. Because apparently I'm just like real into this stuff now. And I hope that you watch this at some point because
I've seen the OVA. I just have not seen the movie yet.
Okay. And the OVA leads directly into the movie, so
Interesting.
It's real cool how they do these things. And the way that they deal with like the aftermath of true ending of Steins Gate in the movie is really cool. It's not something I would have thought of, and then like when it gets there I'm like, that makes total sense. Like, oh my god, why didn't I think of that? So it's A+, and I definitely spent like $22 on that Blu-ray.
Well, alrighty. It's good to know.
Yeah, I like I said, apparently just got real into Steins Gate. Thank you, buddy.
It's my job. It's what I do to people. I'm like, hey, have you heard of this? You should watch it or play it. And they're like, oh, wow.
That's basically how it goes.
So yeah, that's Steins Gate 0 in a nutshell. It's a wild ride. Does some interesting things, does some sometimes not so interesting things. But
overall it's really great though.
Yeah, it's interesting.
As we mentioned, don't know that it 100% needed to happen, but it's fine.
Right. Well then. Well.
God.
that's going to wrap this episode up then, I believe.
Yep.
So if you'd like more from us, go to seasonanimecheckup.com or sac.cool, where you can find past episodes of this podcast and other podcasts like Season Anime Checkup and Jared and Al Watch. You can also find columns and reviews on the site as well. If you want more from Anladium, go to anladium.com. She's got columns and reviews. You can find us on Twitter, twitter.com/animecheckup. And you can support us on Patreon, patreon.com/SACOVA. Buy us a slice of pizza. Get access to unedited versions of the podcast, some early stuff, some bonus stuff, all sorts of stuff. Stuff. Next week, we will be talking about, I don't know, something. We'll figure it out.
Yet. Yep.
We'll be like, man, it's June. What do we talk about? We'll be like, I don't know. June stuff.
The fact that it's June.
The fact that it's June. That's probably what we'll talk about. There you go.